The gate between worlds had not opened in 400 years. When it finally cracked apart in a shower of blue sparks, the sentries atop the ashfall wall expected demons, or raiders, or nothing at all. They did not expect a human man carrying 3 dragon hatchlings in a sling made from his own torn coat. Alex stumbled through the threshold with soot on his face and a limp in his left leg, cradling the trembling creatures against his chest like they were made of glass. The moment his boots hit solid ground, the portal behind him screamed shut, sealing off whatever nightmare he'd walked out of. "Identify yourself," a guard barked, spear leveled at his throat. Alex didn't even flinch. He was too busy checking on the smallest hatchling, whose scales had gone a worrying shade of gray. "Later. Get me a healer. Now." Something in his voice, flat, exhausted, utterly without room for argument, made the guard lower her spear before she even decided to. Mia was the first healer to reach him, summoned from the barracks infirmary at a dead sprint. She'd expected a wounded soldier. What she found instead was a man kneeling in the dirt, guarding 3 baby dragons with his body like a wall, glaring at anyone who got too close. "Move," she said, dropping to her knees beside him without waiting for permission. He moved. That alone told her more about him than any introduction could have. Men who carried themselves like soldiers didn't yield space easily. He yielded it instantly, the moment he understood she could help. She ran her hands over the smallest hatchling first, copper-scaled, barely the size of a house cat, its breathing shallow and wrong. She recognized enough of the old lore to know what she was looking at wasn't ordinary. "These are emberkin," she whispered. "There hasn't been a confirmed emberkin hatching in 2 centuries. Where did you find them?" "Doesn't matter right now. Can you save it or not?" Mia's jaw tightened at his tone, but she didn't argue. She pulled a vial of ground phoenix ash from her satchel and got to work. 3 days passed before Alex spoke more than a sentence at a time to anyone. He stayed by the hatchling's side in the infirmary, sleeping in a chair, refusing food until Mia physically put it in his hands and told him the dragons would smell his hunger and grow anxious. That worked. Nothing else had. On the 4th day, the smallest one, the copper hatchling, opened its eyes and looked directly at him. It made a small chirping sound, stretched its wings, and climbed unsteadily into his lap. Alex went very still, like he was afraid it would shatter. "They imprinted on you," Mia said from the doorway, arms crossed, watching. "That's not common. That's not common at all. I didn't ask for that. Doesn't matter what you asked for. It's what happened." She stepped closer, studying the way the other 2 hatchlings, one obsidian black, one pale silver, had shifted in their sleep toward him, as if his presence alone was gravity. "You still haven't told anyone where they came from." Alex was quiet for a long moment, running a thumb along the copper dragon's spine. "The hollow reach. On the other side of the gate." Mia's blood went cold. The hollow reach was sealed because everything living there was purged. Nothing survived that war. Nothing. That's what everyone thought. He finally looked up at her, and for the first time she saw exactly how tired he was. Not just body tired, but the kind of tired that lived behind the eyes. Their nest was buried under collapsed stone for 400 years. Their parents didn't make it. I found the eggs by accident, and I wasn't about to leave them to rot in a graveyard. You went into the hollow reach. Alone. I didn't know it was called that when I walked in." She should have been angry at the recklessness of it. Instead, something in her chest twisted with a feeling she didn't have a tidy name for. Word spread through ashfall faster than fire through dry grass. A human had crossed into the forbidden reach and returned, not with treasure, not with weapons, but with the last 3 dragons in existence. The elders convened. The temple bells rang for the first time in a generation. Old men who hadn't left their homes in years hobbled out into the square just to see the hatchlings with their own eyes. The people of Ashfall understood the bond the instant they saw it. 3 dragons who would not settle unless Alex was within sight. The Elder Council summoned him formally 2 weeks later. Mia insisted on coming, partly as his healer, mostly because she didn't trust him not to say something reckless to the council and get himself imprisoned out of sheer bluntness. "You entered a sealed territory without authorization," the eldest counselor said, voice grinding like stone on stone. "By our laws, that alone warrants punishment." "By your laws," Alex said evenly. "Those eggs should have died buried under rubble." I didn't ask permission because there was no one left alive on that side of the gate to ask. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. The eldest counselor leaned forward. You understand what you've brought back is not a pet or a curiosity. Dragons bonded to a single guardian are bound for life. Where you go, they will follow. Where you fall, they may fall with you. This is not a small burden you've taken on. I know. Do you? The counselor pressed. You are human. You will not live as long as they will. You will grow old while they are still young. Have you considered that? The chamber went silent. Alex glanced down at the copper hatchling curled against his boots, then at the two others perched on the bench beside him, watching him with the unblinking focus only very young creatures could manage. I considered leaving them in the dark to die alone, he said quietly. I couldn't do it. Everything after that, I'll figure out as it comes. Mia found herself staring at him, something warm and unfamiliar settling behind her ribs. The council debated for another hour before ultimately granting Alex provisional guardianship, with Mia formally assigned as his liaison to monitor the hatchling's health, an assignment she suspected the council chose deliberately, given how thoroughly she'd already inserted herself into the situation. Outside the chamber, evening had settled gold and orange over Ashfall's rooftops. The three hatchlings tumbled around Alex's feet, snapping playfully at each other's tails, alive in a way that felt like a small miracle every single time Mia watched it happen. You could have died in there, she said. You know that, right? The Hollow Reach isn't just abandoned. It's cursed ground. I know. And you'd do it again. It wasn't a question, but he answered anyway. If it meant something like this survived? Yeah, I would. She shook her head, but she was smiling despite herself. You're an idiot. Probably. The silver hatchling chose that moment to climb up Mia's leg and settle itself into the crook of her arm with total, unearned confidence, chirping contentedly. Alex huffed something that was almost a laugh, the first she'd heard from him since he'd stumbled through the gate. Looks like it likes you, he said. Looks like all three of you have decided I'm not getting rid of you, she said, but she didn't put the hatchling down. Behind them, the temple bells rang again, this time not in alarm, but in something closer to celebration. Word had reached the outer villages, and for the first time in 4 centuries, people were speaking the word dragon with hope instead of grief. Ashfall had been a city clinging to old ruins and older sorrows, waiting for a sign that the world hadn't finished taking things away from it. It got one anyway, carried through a dying gate in the arms of a man who hadn't known how to walk away from something small and helpless, even when every law and every instinct told him to. The dragons would grow. The city would rebuild around them, reshape its laws, its stories, its future. And somewhere in the quiet space between duty and choice, Alex and Mia would keep standing side by side, guardians, together, of something the world had thought was lost forever. Hope, it turned out, didn't need to be big to change everything. Sometimes it just needed 3 small, stubborn heartbeats, and someone brave enough to carry them home.